Motion.
Motions.
Member for Toronto Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, there have been discussions, as they say, among the parties, and I think you will find unanimous consent for the following motion. Whereas the Government of Canada has actively advocated for and continues to support the principles enshrined by the United Nations Universal Declaration on Human Rights and the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 263A of 9 December 1948, whereas the extreme forms of totalitarian rule practiced by the Nazi and communist dictatorships led to premeditated and vast crimes committed against millions of human beings and their basic inalienable rights on a scale unseen before in history, whereas hundreds of thousands of human beings fleeing the Nazi and Soviet communist crimes sought and found refuge in Canada, whereas the millions of Canadians of Eastern and Central European descent whose families have been directly affected by Nazi and/or communist crimes have made unique and significant cultural, economic, social, and other contributions to help build the Canada we know today, and whereas 20 years after the fall of the totalitarian communist regimes in Europe, knowledge among Canadians about the totalitarian regimes which terrorized their fellow citizens in Central and Eastern Europe for more than 40 years in the form of systematic and ruthless military, economic, and political repression of the people by means of arbitrary executions, mass arrests, deportations, the suppression of free expression, private property, and civil society, and the destruction of cultural and moral identity, and which deprived the vast majority of the peoples of Central and Eastern Europe of their basic human rights and dignity, separating them from the democratic world by means of the Iron Curtain and the Berlin Wall, is still alarmingly superficial and inadequate. And whereas Canadians were instrumental during the 1980s in raising global awareness of crimes committed by European totalitarian Nazi and communist regimes by founding an annual Black Ribbon Day on August the 23rd to commemorate the legal partnership of these two regimes through the infamous Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact and its secret protocols. Be it resolved, Mr. Speaker, that every victim of any totalitarian regime has the same human dignity and deserves justice, remembrance, and recognition by the Parliament and the Government of Canada in efforts to ensure that such crimes and events are never again repeated. Be it further resolved that the Parliament and the Government of Canada unequivocally condemn the crimes against humanity committed by totalitarian, Nazi, and communist regimes, and offer the victims of these crimes and their family members sympathy, understanding, and recognition for their suffering, and be it further resolved that the Government of Canada establish an annual Canadian Day of Remembrance for the victims of Nazi and Soviet communist regimes on August the 23rd, to be called Black Ribbon Day, to coincide with the anniversary of the signing of the infamous pact between the Soviet and Nazi regimes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Does the honourable member for Toronto Centre have the unanimous consent of the House to propose this motion?
Yes.
Agreed? La Chambre l'a entendu.
Is it the pleasure of the House to adopt the motion?
Accord?
Agreed. Carried.